Welcome to Armchair Expert. I'm Dax Shepard, and I'm joined by Monica Padman.
Hello.
Our good buddy is here today.
Yeah.
He's wild. Josh Brolin. He is an award-winning actor. The Goonies, No Country for Old Men, Sicario, Dune, Milk, and a book I absolutely loved, which is out right now, called From Under the Truck. And we daringly asked him on the spot if he would read one of the stories. Cold read of my favorite story in the book. And he obliged, that sweetheart that he is.
Also, this episode's on video if people want to watch it.
Oh, yes. This is on video. Josh is so fucking handsome. To not watch the words come out of that gorgeous mug would be a mistake. It'd be a travesty. So go over to YouTube and watch this. Enjoy. We are supported by Allstate. They've partnered with us to be the presenting sponsor of this episode, and you could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. You're in good hands with Allstate. Keep watching to hear more about Allstate during the fact check.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
You were here 3 years ago, which kind of shocked me.
That's crazy.
As I listened this morning on my bike ride.
Wait, the last time I saw you.
That's true. You pulled in the driveway because you did Ted's podcast?
Yeah.
Right.
That's right. It was after that when I thought I was having marital problems, but I wasn't.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Okay.
No, I fluctuate.
Oh, you shared?
Yeah.
I always share because
That's
I'm one of
great.
these guys,
Sorry, I
kind of
wanna make
like
sure
a book
everyone's
where you
straight.
go, you have to manifest it in order to get it out of you because you know the you that it's happening in is not perceiving it correctly.
Yeah.
So
You know
I
enough to not trust
Absolutely.
your assessment of things.
And that has nothing to do with like a program thing or that. I just know that.
So what's tricky though is, and I think we do the same thing, is my wife, well, and Monica as well, because we talk so much. Though they're my two kind of check-ins. They'll say to me, "You're crazy right now. That
You're
theory
crazy
makes
right now."
no sense."
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
I know you've convinced yourself that's what's happening.
Yeah.
But what's tricky is if your kind of check system is the person you're having trouble with. Where do you go? And I guess that's
that's
my
exactly
question.
right.
Yeah.
No,
So where do you go? I have a specific person I go to.
I usually go to Dax Shepard.
You're not
How's
checking it
that
enough
working out?
because
Yeah.
I don't remember hearing any of your crazy
We've already
ideas.
filed. No. Who do I go to? God, there's a couple of people. You have one person that you go to?
And ironically, it is your doppelganger.
Matt Damon?
No, Tom Hansen.
Oh, but
I don't know if
those-
we've discussed
Those
yes, we have.
three,
Do you know- Yeah, not that Matt Damon is my
there is a
doppelganger.
Venn diagram there
Of
of you and
handsomeness,
Matt
really.
and Tom
Well,
Hansen.
handsomeness.
Handsome.
I
Tom
love it.
Hansen.
Tom brought me. Did he bring me in? No, it didn't actually end up happening. But you and I spoke about this. Is that Tom kind of like coerced me into his thing. We had a great conversation. We talked about surfing. We had everything in common that there was to have.
Oh, it's
Literally
it's
everything.
Crazy. Yeah,
and apparently, which I never really saw, that we look like each other. So why he's not my lawyer doesn't make any sense other than Cliff Gilbert Laurie, who brought me in, which is how kind of business works, and you learn that later. They bring you in as a top dog, and they go, "You're amazing.
Yeah.
Like, we want to represent you, and we've been trying to represent you since before you were born."
They flatter
And
you
you go,
to death.
and they flatter the shit out of you. Yeah. Then you get in there, and then you never see that person again.
Yeah, that's the big bait and switch.
That is the bait and switch.
You meet the owner of the agency, and then you never see them again until you quit, and then they call you again when you're quitting.
Yeah. What are you doing? Hey, why are you changing? We have been focusing. Do you know how much time we've put into you? I go, fuck, you don't even know my name, bro. You had to look it up. I have to say this to finish that thought.
Yeah.
Is the hand-me-downs that I've always gotten have been better than what could have been had I gone with the top dog.
Oh, yeah.
Because those hand-me-downs turned into the top dogs.
And they care.
And they care.
still
They give a
care.
shit. There's something very personal still. And still, these people have, like Wendy Kirk is my lawyer. And she is with JSSK. And what she has done, they even offered her a partnership when she changed. And she said, no, I don't like what it does to me.
Wow.
Whoa.
And they forced her to be a partner. So she's a partner, but she works with Obama. She works, I mean, she's a high end.
There's a really great metaphor here, which is, yeah, the person under the owner, of course, wants to get in with you and they can have some ownership over the ride, which is what we all want, right? They want to collaborate in a sense. And they don't, if they inherit Jack Nicholson, there's really no ownership.
Right.
And I mostly just think, well, I should be with that person because that would prove I'm of value or I have status or something. And I would deny someone this great opportunity to help me and allow myself to be helped.
Yeah.
It's always, so back to Tom Hansen. So when you were saying you met with him, it was in a professional capacity, but it could have very well just been in a sobriety capacity because
that was the other thing.
I interviewed him, and so he's very open. We spoke openly about it. So he could have been, when you were saying he was bringing me
program,
in, no, he outed himself in the episode.
That goes out the window in this podcast.
But even in the rooms, it's not anonymous. I never understood it. They somebody goes, hey, they go, hey, do you want to share? And you go, yeah. So today, and they go, hey, what's your name?
That's a big no-no.
What's your name? And you go, why do I have to say my name? Because back in the day, the first 100 that the book is based on, you never had to say your name. You just had to say, I'm an alcoholic.
That makes a little more sense.
So it doesn't make any sense, the hypocrisy of please, hello,
state your
identify
name.
yourself.
And people take a certain pleasure out of going, who are you?
Yeah, totally. And I'm usually the guy that says, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, in a room.
It's an anonymous program. And I start
people get in fights in AA meetings?
No, I don't.
Well, I know you almost got in a fight once with Eric Dane. We talked about that as well. Meeting?
Yeah, at Tom Hansen's house.
Seriously?
With the actor Eric Dane. Do you know Eric Dane?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. He and I walked out to Tom's driveway in the middle of a meeting.
Because you got into it? Really?
Yeah, I was sponsoring
Take It Outside?
This kid, and he yelled at this kid, and I already had a axe to grind with them. So I go, let's go, motherfucker, outside.
Really?
And we went
I love those moments.
It's a low point. But anyways, when you were saying Tom Hansen was going to bring you in, it very well could have meant he was inviting you to the meeting. That's where my head went when you said that I
because that's your experience.
Yeah.
My experience is purely on a professional capacity.
But I was just with him, and he does look like you guys, and you guys are both blessed. You're both very handsome. Okay, so I have, and I just texted you this the other day.
Yeah.
You are in my algorithm on Instagram in a way that only Corey Feldman is in my.
Dude,
so I see dueling.
I understand the parallel. There's no connective Goonies like tissue
That's
there.
not why it's there.
I know that.
Monica, really quick, just for a fun question. What human is in your algorithm where it's like constantly seeing interviews
see this person come up, and it goes and kind of, it has its moments where it's like this person will show up for this 2 months.
Am I following them?
Well, that's what's interesting.
Probably.
I'm following Josh, but I'm not following Feldman. But I guess people who like the shit I like, cars or whatever, they like these Feldman videos, so it knows that I might like them.
Right.
And I liked a couple, but then I didn't like them anymore.
It was really fun for like a month.
Yeah, and then I don't like it at all.
And you know what you did? Which is what I did, is you forwarded them to other people. You were like, oh my God, look at this lead that he did. And by the way, I have nothing against Feldman.
No, how
it's
could
its
you?
Own. What I questioned the whole time was, does he know? And I think that's what drew everybody in. When you sit there and you're just going like this.
Do you know anything about this?
Not really. He's not in my algorithm.
Feldman.
But you're a Goonies fan, right? I remember that from before. What? No, you're not a Goonies fan. That was a no. That was a look of absolute, almost disgust.
No panic.
Was it panic?
It was panic because I think I have to say yes, but that's a straight up lie. I think maybe I've only half seen it.
Okay. Only have seen it.
Half.
Oh, half seen it.
Yeah, like
whenever you're not in the movie, she fast forwards.
No, but I kind of liked the idea of I only have seen it, meaning I didn't react like everybody else. I just saw it.
I didn't like or dislike.
No,
I just seen
saw
it. Plain and simple.
So was there no?
No, you must be thinking of your doppelganger Matt Damon, Good Will Hunting. You're
That's
just confused. You're confused. But I would say Corey Feldman. Sorry, no. What's happening?
Yeah.
So he tours. He's a musician and a lead singer and a guitar player, and he's on tour seemingly like many dates a year because the videos come hot and fast.
Okay, good
and
for him.
He does guitar solos and he sings,
which he's been doing for a very long time. It's just recently he went on a tour with Fred Durst called. It was like I can't remember what.
Okay.
He was opening for Fred Durst.
Oh, interesting.
And Fred Durst kind of brilliantly created this whole thing called like the worst tour in the world.
Oh wow.
I can't remember. It's not called that, but it's something like that.
So it's intentional.
So from Fred Durst's point of view, but I think he took, which was genius, took Corey Feldman and said, you open for me and then we're going to come out and do our bullshit.
Yeah.
And Fred has a huge like white beard now and comes out with basically what he wore back in the day. And it's just fucking funny. But when you see Corey doing his thing, which is what he's always done, there's no difference in what he was doing during the Goonies back in that day and what he's doing now. There's just a seriousness to it that confuses.
So similar, exact same thing. And I didn't forward to anybody. I did immediately text my best friend Aaron and say, like, are you seeing these films? He's like, it's all I'm seeing, right?
Right.
And yes, the great curiosity, which by the way, not even to be political, that was always my great curiosity about Trump. It's like, that's what I'm most interested in.
Yeah.
Is he in on any of this or is he not in on it? That's what I'm not sure about.
He is.
But all to say, Brolin, for much different reasons, has just infiltrated my algorithm. So
that's exciting.
I love it. And I texted him the other day and I'm like, I watch 4 or 5 interviews with you a day.
A day.
And I like every single one of them.
Wait, how many interviews are you doing?
Well, that's the point I'm getting to.
That's the point.
Oh, wow.
So, first question. Is this the most press you've ever done for anything? Let's start there.
Yes.
To promote your book.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have whored myself out to this dog and pony like I never have before.
Selfishly, when we have a guest coming up and I start seeing that the guest is everywhere, I just kind of go, ugh. Yeah. I'm bummed. Like
what new are we going to get?
And like 2 things. Yeah. What new are they going to say? And then are people just sick of this person? Because I know I've seen him 6 places.
Totally.
So I saw you everywhere. And my first thought was like, oh, bummer. Like we're going to be less. But then my true belief in what you and I share, that we could also have something completely original and different.
That's for sure.
Yeah. I don't want to be hyperbolic. I want to make sure I'm being honest here. But I can't remember a book I've read that took me more through it personally. And I don't want to make this about myself, but
why not?
I am also writing something.
Okay.
I imagine we have some of the same fears about writing something, and I'm just reading it, and I'm like, I could. This could be my book. I could be writing this book.
I could see that.
And I'm extra mean to you. Because I'm extra mean to me. And I'm like, oh yeah, we have the same story. The fucking story. Like I'm getting really mad at myself reading the book.
Oh, really? Why?
But in a glorious way.
No, but tell me why.
The amount of things we had to do to be dangerous and scary so that no one would try to hurt us.
Yeah.
How exhausting for everyone. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm like reading my own inventory.
Oh yeah. No, now I know what you mean.
And then I'm also having like great forgiveness for myself.
In reading the book.
Yeah, because I have great forgiveness for you because I just adore you.
I agree. It's very mutual.
Thank you. Yeah. But I'm reading it in a way that I don't read other books just because it feels so familiar to me. And I am constantly checking myself and going, really, you're just a fucking egomaniacal piece of shit. And really all this is this. And I'm so mad at myself. But then I'm reading your book and I'm like, oh, what the fuck else was this guy gonna do? He grew up in a cage with a wolf. Like, what was this
with a chimp, right?
Did you read it, by the way?
No, I don't read the books on purpose.
Okay, no. I love when people are honest. Like I did Rogan, and Rogan was like, I go, so where's the book? And he goes, I don't know, where is the book? Oh, yeah. And I was like, fuck you mean, where is the book? We sent you the book.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, where is it? I'm like, so you didn't read the book. Read
it's
the fucking book.
It's kind of like the Goonies situation I was put into. No, but I do it on purpose in case things get too esoteric for people who have not read it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually by design. So I'll have read some crazy book on, astrophysics, and all of a sudden me and the person we've left the planet.
Left the planet.
And I'm like, hey, no one knows what you're talking about.
even this, like, I want to know specifically the why, the parts that you resonate with.
Well, wait, let me interrupt you for a second. First of all, the fears in writing a book. I didn't have a fear. There was only one moment, and I've told this story before, but there was only one moment where I kind of said, you know what, you need to be just a little bit more inspiring in order to be attractive to a wider audience. And it was the only time I ever thought that. And I wrote probably 40,000 words with that in the back of my head, having told nobody. And then my lit agent said, she read the first chapter and she said, first chapter is really good. You've smoothed it out. It's very clear. You've simplified a lot of things. It's great. What the fuck happened with chapter 2?
And that was the one you were going to protect yourself with?
Not even protect myself, but just give it a little more positive oomph.
Yeah.
And I said, first of all, I fell in love with her at that moment because I was like, you see me. Which I think that's the biggest thing. Wow, you see me. You see behind the tough and the thing and the guy. And she said, you need to go back and rewrite it. I said, the whole thing? And she goes,
what part?
Go back and be you. If you cheat or if there's an affectation or if you're trying to write for somebody else, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing. The other thing is the fear didn't come until I was 2 days into the Audible. And I tripped through the Audible and I can read well. I speak well. I speak in front of an audience well. I can read other people's books well. There was something about reading through my own book where I was tripping through every sentence. I was started to shame spiral. And then within that shame spiral, I started to say, I wish that I could burn any evidence that this thing ever existed, even as an idea. I've done the dumbest thing. I should have just wrote, when I did the Goonies, me and Corey Feldman used to go to lunch together, and it was so fun. He was so smart, and he was playing music then too, and
I
go
can't
through
say
the whole
I'm shocked
thing.
When I see him on stage.
I went through, and there's some people that have reacted to it and that like, this is the fucking worst book I've ever read because wasn't he married for 9 years? Where's that? Wasn't he that? Where's spoon feed us the shit? That's I understand. Like there's a certain amount of that when you call it a memoir that you want. This is through the eyes of this is really more about children and parents. That's what it is. To me, it's like surviving nurture to get to nature, trying to get rid of the habits that you acquired during nurture, and then confronting those and hopefully thriving within that nature, figuring out a way to thrive within that nature. So then children come in and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I've learned that through people's reaction, because people's reaction is either really negative because of the form, because of how it's laid out, or super fucking personal and emotional.
Yeah. Put me in the latter.
No, I know.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. I probably didn't do the headline correctly, but I'm just saying, I'm judging you so unfairly and severely because I hear myself.
Yeah.
And I hate myself a lot of the time.
So you hate me, therefore.
And I really relate to that reading your own thing out loud, because when you're writing it, you're really just broadcasting the way you do in life. I'm telling you my story and I'm right.
Yeah.
But when you're hearing it, you're actually now the audience. And now you're like, God, do I sound like that all the time? A. Yeah. B, that's really tragic what I'm acting like was no big deal.
Yeah.
That to me is really the heartbreaking part. And that's the stuff that I found like a ton of compassion towards you. And then through that myself, which is like, and I do this a lot. And I think for Monica and the people in my life, I have such a nonchalant way of going through all this stuff.
Yeah.
And when I'm hearing your nonchalant version of it, I want to go, yeah,
but
you were really scared. This was a very, very scary ride you were on.
Yeah.
And you were a little person. You have little people. I have little people.
Yeah.
There's no way you weren't terrified. And there's no way I wasn't terrified.
Right.
I don't know. Your book has helped me kind of really embrace that part. Like, go ahead and acknowledge that, no, you were fucking terrified a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And it's colorful and cool and it's my story now, but let's also be honest about the fact that you spent a lot of your life quite scared of everything going on around you.
There is an indictment. Do you know what I mean? There is an indictment, and Howard Stern brought this up. He took it very, like you. I mean, I think you two the most, took it very personally. And he took it very personally because he had a paralleled thing with his mom. And he was like, this is not fucking okay. Like, I want to hear you admit that it's not okay. And you go, yes, of course there's an indictment. Of course I can see it clearly, especially now in how I parent my kids, how I've always parented my kids, albeit messily. Yeah. But how I feel about that time is it was a trauma or a tragedy or whatever it is because of this narcissistic vortex that I was living in. And that's what it is. It's this narcissism. It's like, are you unable to celebrate the child? Do you know what I mean? If your child does a drawing for you on a Post-it, are you going to put it on your chest and wear it around so the child can go, oh my God, like that guy loves my drawing.
Is there room for the child in your performance?
Or what is this? I don't understand what this is.
Yeah.
Well, can you make it more like this and more like this? Or can you dress more like this so when a picture is taken with me and the child, it makes me look like, that's all narcissistic bullshit.
Yeah.
And it goes back to one image that my dad would say. My dad was very open about this because he found it, I don't know if he found it funny or if he just found it informational and, he just didn't care how it was perceived. But my dad used to say, I remember when your mom was in the driver's seat, you were in the passenger seat and you guys were arguing and my dad was in the back with his hands over his ears. And you go, that's a family tree. And you go, who's the husband?
Right.
The kid.
Yeah.
The 8-year-old kid who's going, man, just fucking drive. Like, why do you got to stop the car and argue? Just drive or whatever. And then the dad's in the back with his hands over his ears. And you go, okay, so that was how that whole thing was set up. And by the way, where's my brother? Like, he's not even part of that diagram because he was a guy that didn't have the fight that you have, that I have.
Yeah. He just got lost.
He just got lost in it. He didn't have the fight. So he lives his life in a very, very simple way now.
Just for people listening, like, I think that is a version of fighting.
Absolutely.
We had this conversation sort of recently, randomly, where Dax was like, we were at odds at how to handle a situation that affects both of us. And he was like, well, we're just different. I'm a fighter. And I was like, I'm a fighter too, but I fight differently.
Yeah.
And they're just all ways of surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all just survival mechanisms, yeah.
And whatever works best.
How do you fight, though? I'm curious.
I mean, I do fight version also.
Well,
meanly.
she and I...
So that's why I was like, what are you talking about? We yelled and screamed at each other last night.
Yeah, I think you'll fight with the people in your circle and I'll fight with strangers. I think maybe that's the diff.
I think I learned early on, being a marginalized person, that wasn't going to work for me. Yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
That would just remove me from I was already on the cusp of getting removed, so that wasn't going to work.
That's my wife.
Yeah, it's getting actually
both
close
Georgians.
to those people.
Both.
That's right.
That's right. How funny is that?
Yeah. It is.
That's a cultural thing, for sure.
Yes. It's like getting close, understanding the person and figuring out what they need from you in order to stay.
To move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. To move forward.
I had some epiphanies reading it. So just to lay it out to people who haven't read it yet, I really recommend it from the bottom of my heart. But also in your previous interview, we got a taste of the chaos, right? You were living in an animal way station. Your mother collected these animals that were, by all accounts, wild.
By all accounts.
Wild.
Wow.
And she also was a very active drinker. She was sexually very active.
Yeah. I found out more and more now. People have come out of the woodworks.
And maybe I shouldn't even say sexual, but she engaged men nonstop. The sexuality
was just as much psychic as it was everything. It was a mental game. It was a sexual game. It was a physical game. It was a spiritual game.
You were regularly, though, at truck stops, at shitty hotels.
All the time.
She was a vagabond. She was dragging you guys around. God knows what she was looking for, but she was interacting with, again, this is where it's, no matter what you think it is or when you tell it to people, she's going up to truck drivers in restaurants and going like, that's a stupid hat. What's going on with that hat? Or her technique to engage people was to neg them and be aggressive and be fearless. And sure, there's some fun and excitement in watching her navigate that and land the plane safely every time, granted, but also as an 8-year-old watching the scary dude in the corner that mom's getting in the face of, also is terrifying to no end.
So unpredictable.
But you don't know why, because it's all you know.
Yeah.
It's like a kid being beaten. They know it hurts.
They think it's standard.
But they think it's standard.
Yes, but some primitive part of you goes, there is an animal that's 300 pounds, and there's another animal that's 105 pounds. Mm-hmm. And the 1/3 animal is shouting at, there's a reality to the swings she was taking that had to be quite scary. Even if you come to expect she would pull it off.
I remember my mom being drunk, and there was a church called Joshua's, and Joshua's was I don't know why the church went down, but it was turned into a bar. And I remember a bar in Paso Robles, Josh.
What a rebrand.
I know, what a rebrand. And I remember my mom pulling somebody, it was James Lee Barrett, the writer. And he was a writer way back in the day. And I remember her pulling him across the table to give him a kiss, right?
Yeah.
So my mom, who was tiny, had that superhuman drunk strength that you know and I know. That was able to pull, but it was always a display. She couldn't just get up and go to the other side. Right. She had to pull him across the table. And I told somebody else this the other day and talk about fear, because not that I forgot about this. There were so many things to write about. It's like, what do you land on, and what the book starts to dictate itself. And then what do you cut once you have, I had at one point 450 pages or something, and then knocked it down to that. But my mom, if you flipped my mom off on the freeway, you were done. I mean, you were fucking done. Right. She would actively run you off the road at 80 miles an hour. Or she would call on the CB, she would call a bunch of truckers, and you would see that car that had been identified now get boxed in and literally get run off the road by several truckers. But she would freak the fuck out. And when you're an 8-year-old in a car, it was wild, man. Yeah. Because she was not only, and how ironic that she died hitting a tree with a car. Because she was always chasing a dude.
A lover 25 years her junior.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Exciting
55,
stuff.
20, exactly 25 years.
What I realized...
Monica's traumatized right now. I just saw her peripherally.
No, because we talked about this, you get two people in life, if you're lucky, who are they're safe spots. Yeah. And so if one or both are not safe, they're unpredictable, you have no choice, but your cortisol levels are at a whatever.
Totally. That's exactly right.
How you're moving through.
That's exactly right. But the whole point, I think, ultimately, of like, why do you feel that this was cathartic in some way? And I go, no, but now I can say, yes, it's starting to become cathartic because of people's reactions to it, where I go, look, to me, what's the point of me writing the book other than just loving writing? And, that's my first and foremost. I'm going to go to Skylight after this, because I used to be on the floor of Skylight reading Russian novels and reading Tolstoy and Turgenev and Gogol and Flaubert and fucking Guy de Maupassant and all that kind of shit when I was 19, 18, 19, 20 years old. And now I'm going to go there and I'm going to see my book on the shelf, which is going to be amazing. But ultimately, how do you accept the chaos of what was and not live the rest of your life as a victim of it? That's the biggest thing.
But again, I don't think you and I run the risk of seeing ourselves as a victim. I think we have the opposite complex.
Which is what?
Which is, I think you need to acknowledge a little more.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you need to be policing yourself about whether, poor me, I was a victim. That's actually not the thing you need to be on high alert of. It's and I walked through that shit and it made me this and that. I think that's more the fucking thing to monitor. But the realization I had reading, what is clear throughout this book is you absolutely love your mother.
You're one of the few people that have said that.
No, you love her. You admire her. You've been kind of trying to be her in some manageable way.
Totally.
She made a fucking impression. No one ever met her and forgot they met her. There's like a lot of attractive stuff about her. I've never thought about the fact that if anyone, not just us, anyone that's the child of a divorce has witnessed that one of the parents left. That's an option. Truly. In the most simple fucking way, it's an option that these people can leave. You know it now. You're down to one. You better fucking love and cherish and perform for that one person, because you're down to one.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
I hold true that I love my mother more than anything, and she is the greatest woman to ever be on planet Earth.
But did you
also,
have a choice?
I don't know that I had a choice to feel otherwise.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say. Do you have a choice? No. Somebody leaves and you go, wait a second. If they leave,
you can leave?
Exactly.
that means you can leave, you can leave, you can leave, you can leave. And then you forget, like once you get outside of the family, then are you reacting to the potential of anybody leaving?
Yeah. I just think once you put a kid in a situation where they only have one parent left, I just don't know what else that kid could do other than be really grateful that one didn't leave.
Yeah.
So there's this true gratitude. Yeah.
But you just said it, performing. Mm-hmm. Then you're performing. Yes. Then you're going, how do I make sure, how do I assure that this person's not going to, that I'm not down to zero?
That never occurred to me when I was reading your book last night.
Interesting.
I was just like, that's an element I need to, again, go through the fucking catalog and just apply that a little bit and just wonder to myself,
Ironically, that's a version of the fight I was talking about earlier. That's you fighting in a different way to survive that.
Totally.
And it's not fighting with yelling, it's fighting with love and affection and being the right thing for her and all of that. It's the same thing.
You become less reactionary. And the thing with my mom, which didn't work in life, and when it was just her, was my mom loved the volley. She loved a high octane volley. So you had to be up here.
Yep.
And I still deal with that. Because I like the high octane volley.
Yeah.
That's why I like Italy.
Yeah,
because it's culturally, like what you said about Georgia, it's culturally at that place all the time. So when I get there, they're like, and I'm like, hey.
Yeah.
It's like,
no one's getting their feelings hurt.
No one's getting their feelings hurt. Whereas here, I may do something and people go, whoa, 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 whoa.
Right, relax.
What's the problem?
Yeah.
And then if I'm feeling surly or whatever, I go, why does everybody want to be fucking monotone all the time? Everybody wants to be in yawn mode. And I go, what, like, it's okay.
Let's wake up.
And interestingly enough, and this is not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, I have my 36-year-old Trevor, my 31-year-old Eden, my 6-year-old Wesleyan, and my 3-year-old Chapel. And I see it in my older kids. My son is a little more docile than what we're talking about. My 31-year-old is the only person on this earth probably who scares me. All she has to do is give me a look, and I'm just like,
you said she was born with your menacing look.
She just has that Brolin brow, I call it. It's that kind of Neanderthal like
pronounced brow ridge.
You know, we would go like this. My youngest daughter has it more pronounced than anybody. So you have the 6-year-old, but I was listening to him this morning, and I said this morning, I was trying to say something, and this is often because we're around our kids all the time. I'm a very present parent, and I do that. So I go, hey, man, 30 seconds. Don't talk for 30 seconds. I need to say something to your mom. And they literally go, okay, Papa, go ahead. And I go, okay. And they go, 1, 2, 3. I'm like, you fucking. But I listen to their volley back and forth, and their volley is phenomenal to me. It's always on this level.
Yeah.
And my wife is always trying to bring it down, and I'm always laughing because I go, that's pretty cool. You guys are on a different. So I'm still a proponent of that thing, just not destructively.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough when your whole environment was an 11 and then you're interacting with people that feels very uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And I get it that it feels uncomfortable. I wrote way too many notes, I see.
I love it. Don't you?
We're on sentence 1 of 15 pages. But back to just conceptually the book. I wanted to ask you, why people, because you told me some people fucking hate it and some people absolutely love it. And I was wondering why people hated it. And then my hunch was, you've already alluded to it, that they wanted this to be a story of your Hollywood stories. Mm-hmm. And so I imagine for you, it's probably hard to juggle that, because that in itself is one of the most complicated things to understand, I think. The Hollywood show business fame part of this equation. Mm-hmm. And so if I were you, I'm not saying you this, if it were me, I'd be like, that's not what I'm trying to share with you. Like, do you want to fucking know me or not? Because it's not about that. Mm-hmm. But then on the outside, I would go, but also, it's so much of you. How could it not be in there? It is so much.
If somebody says, I didn't learn anything about him, they're saying something very specific. And they're saying, I didn't get spoon-fed the People magazine shit that I was expecting.
Some hot gossip.
Which is okay. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said, I don't have a judgment of that. That's not what this book is. And there is no juggling of it.
I wanted to know, did you have to step over the hurdle of wanting the book to be as well written as Cormac McCarthy? Like, did you have that hurdle to deal with that you want so bad for it to be the thing that you loved so much? I think that's one of my continual hurdles when I write.
Well, first of all, if you're actually writing, then you're one of 0.0001% people who are actually writing their own memoirs or writing their own book.
Yeah, no,
that's
mine's by
true.
hand.
When I found out how many people don't write their own memoirs, I go, but that's a biography
Yeah.
that you got paid for.
right.
And the writer didn't.
Yeah.
So that's a cheat. And I understand it's somebody taught, like Cher. I had a great back and forth with Cher on Graham Norton, and I absolutely adored her. Absolutely fucking adored her.
She's kind of mom-esque.
Dude, mom-esque, but mischievous, but super honest,
Fearless.
and fearless, but vulnerable. Said something during, and then was looking for me afterwards to say, I didn't mean to suggest this.
Yeah.
So conscientious.
Yeah.
77, 78 years old. I was like, that fucking broad is great.
Yeah,
man.
no, she's
I
a
love her.
gangster.
But her book, you're a legendary icon. So you're like, it's like, I do want to know what happened in those 9 days that she was married to Greg Allman. Like, what the fuck happened? Why was it only 9 days?
Yeah,
What
take your
happened?
time. I wanna hear
take
about
your
every
time,
day.
every day, every hour,
Absolutely.
kind of thing.
I
But
hope you journaled throughout the
with
day.
this, it's like somebody I was in Austin, Texas, and people paid for like a book signing and then a picture and all that. And some guy came up to me and like, of all the things he could have said, he said, "You're too young to write a memoir." And then he left. I was like, who the fuck was that dude?
How old was he?
Bro, he was like 40 or something,
Okay.
45. And I go, but he's right. It's like if I were to write a tell-all, I would at the end of
My
my
life in Hollywood.
But going back to what you said, writing a good book that's well written meant everything to me.
Yeah. But it can be daunting.
It can be incredibly daunting if you care about the writing style and you care about somebody who's written thousands and thousands and thousands of pages. Me.
Yes.
I've been writing. I mean, whether it's journal writing, I have 88. I probably have 91 full journals now. I've written several books. I've written several books of poetry. I've written a novella. I've written, and I just put it in a
Screenplays,
corner.
way too long screenplays.
Never wrote a screenplay.
Wait, no, I thought the
I wrote
submarine in the lake next to Fargo.
No, that was a joke.
That's not a...
That was always to break the silence and to create a discomfort that made me really happy.
Oh my
That
God,
brought
that's not
great-
even clear to me in the book. In the book, by the way,
obviously
you
it's
got me.
Poorly written.
Wait, so what's happening?
This comes up multiple times. So just really to set the stage,
Yeah.
the structure of the book is like 2-page stories, 4-page story, 3-page, and it's not linear. We're bouncing back and forth from childhood to Goonies to 2023 to this to that.
Yeah,
it's all over
fun.
the map, and I bet
As
it's a
your
little.
memories do.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
your
think
memories
for
do.
people on the first approach, it probably is a little off-putting. It's not clicking into their normal format. But I will say, if you stick with it, I do think when I put it down last night, I'm like, I have the whole picture. It didn't come out in the way that I'm used to it coming out, but it's almost like a Nolan movie. I tell people when we sit down to watch a new
That's exactly
Nolan
right.
movie, I go, don't try to figure it out. It'll all of a sudden be clear to you.
Yeah.
Just you'll waste all your time and energy.
It's Anora. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. Anora takes you and it says, well, is it this or is it that? If you spent all your time watching Anora going, is it a comedy?
Exactly.
Or is it a satire? Or did this really happen? Is this based in truth? And you're looking at your phone going, just fucking follow it.
Right. Just go with
lend
it.
yourself to the craziness and the messiness that life always seems to hand out.
Yeah.
The thing is that we're always trying to get away from it. What if we just sit in it for a while? It can be super funny. It can be super absurd. It can be super emotional.
Yeah.
That's our desire to control. It's
Yeah,
like this,
structure.
I don't know what this is. I'm scared because I don't know what this is. I can't enjoy this because I don't know what this is. The submarine
Yeah,
film.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then
So
I'll
this
talk
comes up
about
in
it
many
more.
different things. He's telling Oliver Stone about this idea. He has the audacity to tell Joel and Ethan Coen about this. And
that you have an idea for a script.
And it says the script is 357 pages long, and it's about a Russian submarine, and he has a budget. He doesn't know how much a Russian sub. I thought all this was real, and I'm like, how dare you tell the Coen brothers about you? What do you? They only direct shit they write. Why are you even telling? I know it's great now that I know it, but I didn't get the joke. I can admit out loud. I'm embarrassed,
and they don't talk. There's no small talk. I mean, now there is, maybe because we're close and all that, but we would sit around and nobody would be saying anything. And what's the one thing that you don't say on set as an actor in front of
I have a script. So great.
Them, Tarantino, like we could list the three worst people.
So we would literally sit there saying nothing, and I'd be like, I'm so fucking bored right now. And I'd go look up and I'd go, hey, listen, I don't want to be inappropriate here. I have an amazing script, and I didn't want to bring it up, but I think now is the right time. And then you'd hear you'd hear like one clearing her throat, and then I would go off literally until we shot.
That's hilarious.
And Joel or Ethan, I don't know, said like, yeah, the submarine part sounds scary. And he goes, exactly. Think King Kong.
It's like performance art. You're just doing this around town.
That's what it is.
Directors.
That's exactly what
I'm
it
like
is.
kind of analyzing every single time I read that. I'm like, God, he really thought this was a great thing. And it's a town next to Fargo. And so the movie would be called Wichipapa or whatever.
No, it was Wapenton, which is actually I had to look up. I was like, what's next to Fargo? Okay, but it's not Fargo, but it's the town next to Fargo. So dumb.
Oh, that's great.
It's like, how can you waste somebody's time, torturously waste somebody's time? Wait, but I do want to say this, that going back, there is a point in writing, had I just started writing, I think that it would have been affected by my need to be perceived like somebody else.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, because there was some trajectory, there was some point in the trajectory of my writing that I found my voice. And I know it's my voice.
Yeah.
And it's like I gave this book while I was writing it to only two people, Zev Borrow. They're both in New York. They're both Jewish. They're both neurotic. Zev Borrow and Ethan Coen. And they both were super fucking honest with me.
Yeah.
And Zev said, if for nothing else, this book is 100% you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you go,
can do.
great.
Yeah.
Good. That was the objective.
That's great. It's not me trying to be this, and somebody goes, oh, Bukowski, or so, oh, this, or oh, Hunter S. Thompson, or what. I go, look, there were so many influences and people I tried to copy for years, man. Mm-hmm. And you go, no, that's me. That's how I write.
I think it's kind of actually there's two things. There's one of the things in the room is ego. Well, keep that aside for a second. The other thing is a really beautiful and sweet part of us, which is like, I read Bukowski and I felt a connection, and I felt being seen in a way that if I'm going to do this, I'll really want that for other people. So part of it's like a really kind of altruistic and beautiful attempt, which is like, if I'm going to do this, I want it to do the thing the things did to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now I have to think of those things that did that to me. And now that's in my mind, and that can be really arresting.
But that wasn't necessarily the case with me. I didn't go back, and to me, the greatest, and it's not the most interesting thing, but the greatest exercise of this book was clarifying. There's a great story about Raymond Carver, and Raymond Carver wrote this, I think, Cathedral that he won the Pulitzer for, and short stories, and he was a sober guy.
He's my all-time favorite.
Well, it's just the best, just the best, and the most clear. And you think of Hemingway's short stories, same thing, very, very clear. But them. 100% them. And when his editor, he was writing, and they were like, look, you have sentences that are roughly 16-word sentences. Let's try to bring it down to 12. And he had such a, it was like, why the fuck are you trying to change my sentence? Like, that's what I want to write. And he was like, yeah, but if we can just economize it and get it down to 12. And then in that volley, he finally said, get out of here. Like, I don't want you as my editor anymore. And a new editor came in, and he said, okay, so look, roughly these sentences are 12-word sentences. Let's see if we can get it down to 9.
Oh my God.
And you know what I mean? They were right.
Yeah.
Because it's when you start slashing and when you start taking all the, vividity of it and the colorizing and all that kind of shit, and you go, what am I trying to convey here?
Yeah.
And try to do it in the clearest way possible. Even when you're in there's a story toward the beginning where it's a little 4-year-old kid and all this chaos is going around. The mother's throwing, cups through the window at the father and all that, but it's written like a Dr. Seuss story. Do you know what I mean?
I took a picture and sent it to Monica of the book because you use Seussian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the day before we were on the fact check and I said, one of my favorite terms is Seussian. And literally within
it was
14
weird.
hours, I read in your
My
book,
favorite writer
Seussian.
of all time.
Yeah.
We
Incredible.
were watching Grinch Who Stole Christmas with the kids the other day.
That's the greatest, man.
And I go, this guy really needs to be held in the same regard as Salvador Dali or something.
For sure.
He's like one of the great thinkers of all time, the
Truly.
great artists of all time, the language, the images.
Everything.
He's an artist on a level of Picasso, in my
That's right.
opinion. Okay, so my favorites, there's some fun Hollywood ones actually that I like. Goonies is a good one.
Oh, good.
The punchline of Goonies is a really good one. And I think people will know this lore of Goonies, which is the kids in Goonies were not allowed. Hopefully this is the half of the Goonies you saw. But I don't know if you remember, there's a point
She
where
just
they
threw out the one thing that she knows.
well, we
I
interviewed
love
him as our
him.
favorite interview.
He was we had him on and it was the best episode of the year by far.
Oh,
my God.
What was?
He
Kwan. We had him on this year.
Oh, it was the best episode.
It's the only episode I've ever made my children listen to.
It's so
He's so special. Fuck, is he special?
Oh my God.
Talk about a guy, and then took off back to China for 20 years, 25 years doing fight coordinating and all this.
His
Saw
story.
Crazy Rich Asians and said, well, maybe I should go back and try it again.
Yes. What a story.
Dude,
What
love.
a story.
Within a year, he was on a boat coming here as a refugee, and then he was on a first-class flight to Sri Lanka to go work with Harrison Ford. It's
How
like
crazy
the
is
worst
that?
luck in the history of mankind and the best luck of.
And I was there in the beginning of that.
I know,
like
that's
literally
so
his
cool.
family would be on the side, and
trying to understand what the
trying
fuck
to
is
understand what the
happening
fuck was going on.
in this country.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
But okay, so famously they built the whole pirate ship and they didn't want the kids to see it. Do you know this lore?
No.
oh, you're the one.
They wanted, when the kids came down the water slide and came out of the water and saw that pirate ship that they had built, that they would get their real reactions.
Yeah.
That was the
Okay.
goal. Very, very cool idea.
Yeah, great idea.
And so what happens?
Okay, so basically they said they kept us away from it. A practically built ship on the biggest stage in all of Hollywood, which was on Warner Brothers, filled with water, 110-foot high, long ship. And they blindfolded us and they finally let us, and we tried to see it and there was no way, and there was security outside, and they backed us in. And then they said, look, we're going to put you underwater. We have speakers underwater, which didn't exist. It was like some high-tech thing.
Oh my God.
And then we went under and they said, we're going to say 3, 2, 1. We want you guys to come up, turn around, right? Take your blindfold off, underwater, come up, turn around and see the ship. And we want that organic reaction.
Wow.
And finally we went under and we go, 3, 2, 1, go. And we all came up and turned around and I saw it and I went, fuck.
Hold the book, you go,
And Dick
holy
Donner.
shit.
No, it was
Fuck.
one. It was one of the. I was like, holy shit! Whatever I said, it was the most organic reaction.
Think about
Fucking
the amount
hell.
of work it took to
I
get that
know.
first reaction. Basically, Brolin
What are you
fucked up
doing?
the months
Literally
of
the
Donner's
whole
preparation.
shot.
That is
Dick Donner was like,
hilarious.
"What? Do it again."
Really funny.
Okay, this is fun because Damon famously turned down Avatar and he was offered 10% of gross. This is now a really fun story about Matt Damon.
Really?
Yeah.
I turned down Avatar.
That's why I bring it up.
What?
I never knew that Matt turned down Avatar. How
With
great.
a on the phone call,
10%.
10% of gross.
For all
So this is
movies.
literally hundreds of millions of dollars.
Literally.
Literally, few people can remember a time when they go, no, thank you. And that resulted in a $200 million loss of income.
Maybe more.
It's one of the great,
Maybe
I
I
think.
know. It's
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you didn't know that.
I did not know
Oh,
that.
isn't that-
And I love that.
Yes, and he has a great attitude about it. Thank God.
Well, because you don't know. You
Yeah.
don't
No, and it
know.
worked
I mean,
out
one of
great
the
for him.
things that I look back at, like, Heath Ledger was supposed to do No Country and then dropped out at some point. And then they looked and everybody wanted it and they said, no, we have a very specific guy. And I auditioned for it and I sent the video in and they
hired
they said who lit it and all that kind of shit. And they didn't and it wasn't until I got in a room that they got Matt, who was it? Matt was supposed to do Milk. Then he had a scheduling conflict. And then Sean Penn, who I had just spent time with in Canada, said, what about Josh?
Wow.
And so it's always, I was supposed to do Birdman. I pulled out of Birdman because I needed to go see my son in Thailand, who was living in Thailand at the time. And then that ended up being Edward Norton.
Oh my goodness.
At Jurassic Park, Chris Pratt.
Jurassic Park. Oh, I just talked to Pratt the other day.
Walk me.
Wait, you were going to be him?
He was
offered. It wasn't. I was going to be him. It was going to be me.
He was going to play Chris Pratt.
But it was going to be me. And Chris told me when we did Avengers together, we were sitting there talking to each other about whatever kids, and he goes, "Yeah, when I showed up, it was your face on all the drawings." Which happened to me for Deadpool 2, which was supposed to be Brad Pitt at some point.
Whoa.
And I remember going and seeing all the drawings for Deadpool 2 and seeing all Brad's face. And I was like, sorry, I'm cheaper.
Yeah.
How would you like the Brad Pitt minus version?
Jesse Eisenberg was just talking about this with Adventureland because it was supposed to be Michael Cera, and he just spent the whole shoot being like, I'm not Michael Cera, I'm not Michael Cera. He was just panicking the whole time.
They wanted Michael Cera and they didn't get him, and now I'm here.
Is that the one he directed?
No, Adventureland was Greg Mottola.
Oh, got it. Right.
The one he just directed is fantastic.
Yeah, I heard it's really good.
Really good. It's really interesting and original.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Back to the book.
Yeah. So there is fun. My own selfish curiosity, and I'm glad you developed a relationship with him, but you have this funny beginning and end to Nick Nolte. Explain the first time you saw him to Monica.
My editor, Noah Eaker at HarperCollins, who has been really wonderful, and he didn't suggest a lot during the writing. I was like, I thought there was going to be this whole, like, you need to change this and flip this into this, and it wasn't. But one suggestion he did make, because I wrote the story about how I had gotten into a thing with my wife at the time, and I was going down Columbus Avenue with just pants on, no shoes, no shirt, kind of out of my mind. And I looked over and there was this guy sitting at this cafe, and it turned out to be Nick Nolte, who I recognized. He had no reason to recognize me.
Sure.
And
like Monica, he hadn't seen Goonies.
Well, exactly. It was like Nick and Monica. And he locked eyes with me, but I remember a slight smile on his face, and it was almost like, get ready, kid. Like, it gets way
as you
gnarlier
say, and I would have thought
this.
the same thing as like, saw in this young shirtless man, that looks familiar.
Yeah.
Yes.
I saw my future and he saw his past, or whatever. Whatever it was. And then that turns into so my editor said, is there a follow-up to that? And I go, there's actually several follow-ups to that. Yeah. And then I chose whatever I wrote, which was the Night Watch story where I'm cutting off my thumb and he was breathing in the same. And it, part of the reason that I chose that, it was because this guy who hadn't gone anywhere for a long time had these moments during that 22 years, Night Watch or Flirting with Disaster, where it could have been a big hit and then it wasn't necessarily. Yeah. Flirting with Disaster was a really revered and is still a revered movie.
It's in my top 3 comedies. I list it all the time.
But not a lot of people have seen it. Have you ever seen Flirting?
I have seen that. It is unbelievable.
It's an unbelievable movie.
Watch it maybe, and I loved it.
It's most
Alan Alda, Mary Tyler Moore, George Siegel,
Patty Arquette,
Patricia Arquette, Ben Stiller, Taya Leone, Richard Jenkins.
Richard Jenkins kind of steals it. He's your lover in the movie.
He's my lover. He's my lover in the movie. And that was a moment, it was like, I'm fucking acting with Nick Nolte.
But you say when you're in this scene with him, he wants to breathe with you. When that's happening, he's actually not Nick Nolte. The magic is real.
And when you're looking in somebody's eyes and you don't see them, and that's whether it be the book, whether it be acting, and like, what do you I come from a dad, even though I didn't grow up in Hollywood, my dad was an actor. There was a celebrity thing in it because he went from total unknown to Marcus Welby, MD, which was basically like the Friends of its time. Yeah. So there was all this attention, and how he dealt with that attention was there was a lot of irritability and a lot of confusion. And, you have to go do this, and you have to be this, and you have to present your wife, and you have to, it was not great. It wasn't great.
Natural to him.
So there was nothing about it in that way that was attractive to me. But behaviorally, and I think if you go back into this book, you go, oh, it was so behaviorally chaotic for me as a kid or my brother as a kid that of course I would be obsessed with why people do what they do. Mm-hmm. And what a great way to explore that in acting.
That was the toe hold for you.
That was it.
Yeah.
It's a version of a psychology degree.
Totally. That's exactly what it is. It's like, would you become a psychologist just to be around people who are constantly talking about this thing that is endlessly interesting to me? Or you get to experientially be in it, be inside of it. And then you're with Nick Nolte and you're like, this is fucking crazy. Nick ended up saving my life later. There was a whole relationship.
You ping-ponged, yeah? Because he certainly had challenges.
Well, he's a ping-pongy kind of guy.
Yeah, I only know the lore. Never met him. I've heard some
the best,
almost impossible to believe stories about him.
I mean, literally walk into his house and you go, Nick, are you there? And he'd go, and you go, I guess he's here, And then he'd go, I'm in the back room.
And he was kind of like, is he like an armchair chemist? He's like growing things.
No, that's what I mean. So you'd go in the back room or whatever past the living room and he'd be sitting there looking into a microscope and studying his blood. And I go, and you see like 6 Band-Aids on his arm. And you go, hey, man. And by the way, not on drugs. No, sober, dude. Sober.
Oh, okay. But he has also partaken in drugs.
He has.
Yeah, because I've heard some fantastic stories.
He has.
I just want to touch on I got left with a few questions. Then I want to touch in on my absolute favorite zone you get into in these many different stories. I have a favorite story in the book.
Oh, great.
By a landslide.
I'd be so interested to know what that is.
Yeah. Mull over whether you have a guess before we get to that.
I do have a guess, but.
Okay. So you're raised on this crazy ranch. Life's nuts. You guys moved to Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
This is where you get involved with the Cedo Rats. We know about that. We talked about that the last time.
Created the Cedo Rats.
Created the proprietary recipe of the Cedo Rats. But Mom was involved. You say she was like one of the lead people in a pyramid scheme that was just kind of raining money.
Yeah.
But I need more info. What was the...
Do you know the pyramid scheme?
I know what the 70s? Pyramid scheme is.
Well, there was the pyramid scheme of the 70s.
What was that?
And it was the beginning. It was the first one. And what you do is if you have the ability to kind of, whether you say manipulate, but she was so good at cold calling people and saying, hey, if you give $5,000 to this pyramid scheme, so if you have 8 people on the bottom, that works itself to 6 people, 4 people, 2 people, 1 person. And then once you get more people on the bottom, you get whatever money has been accumulated in that pyramid, and then you start a new pyramid. She would have 20 pyramids going at once. She could call 100, 200 people a day and get people involved.
Yeah.
So she was getting that money, one bag after another.
Dumping bags of money on the table.
She would come in with literally grocery bags full of money, and then she'd dump it. I can see it right now. It was right next to her bed, on the side of her bed, and she'd dump it and she'd say, count. So I counted. I'd count 50 grand, or I kept, and she had, and then at some point she was put on a hit list. She was told, you're on a hit list. We found the list. You're the 3rd person, or ultimately she found out she was the 3rd person on the list, and the first 2 people had not been killed, but had been severely beaten.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and those are the people who, didn't get their money back.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
Also, simply because I'm obsessed with money, it's like the whole time I'm reading the book, I'm like, what is Mom doing for a living? It's like, where does this ranch come from? Who's
My dad.
Your dad, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then this pyramid, so then a windfall of money.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fascinating. And then you're stealing a good deal of it, maybe $6 grand of it you found. Yeah.
While you were counting, you were pocketing.
Well, I knew it was around there somewhere. And when you're a 13-year-old kid, you're not even 13, 12-year-old kid who has
and you personally have counted 50,000
pension for addictions. is.
Yes.
Yeah.
That you don't even know about yet. And then you're hitting, you're taking each piece of furniture saying there's got to be a hollow spot in the floor or whatever. And then finally hearing that chunk or a piece of wood
I would
goes
have got rock hard.
boom, and falls out. And you're like, yes. And I paid her back.
You did?
After I did Goonies, I gave her a check for $6,000 and she didn't know what it was for. She didn't know it was gone because she had money coming in and out all the time.
It's like these cartel people. They lose hundreds of millions of dollars in holes. They don't even know.
She was a drug dealer.
Yes.
She was a kingpin.
Yeah. And I just can't imagine anything more exciting than being 12 years old and having access to $6,000 and how much fun me and my friends would have had.
Oh my God, dude.
It must have just been
Mike Herbert, who's still one of my closest friends, he looked older. So he would go to the drum shop or he would go to the thing. He had a mustache.
Yeah. Herb Estate.
The Herb Estate.
Yeah. Okay. So that was, okay. I was curious about that.
Yeah.
And then I guess I can go into the thing I like the most.
Yeah.
So the times I like the book the most is when you're telling on yourself.
That makes sense.
I like it so much.
Makes sense.
It's crazy how that's the most beautiful part of people.
It is the most beautiful part. Accountability
It's just so counterintuitive.
to most people, not all.
Yeah, I guess was that stuff hard to write, or has our 30 years in AA helped us get to a point where we know we'll be loved on the other side of that? Was it hard?
It's hard after you do it and you put it out there and somebody says, this is the worst book I've ever read in my life. And you go, huh. But ultimately, it's even better because then you start to realize the thing that you've learned early on in the program or whatever is that has everything to do with them and not about me. Mm-hmm. They're like, I don't want you to reveal shit, man. That means I have to reveal shit.
Exactly.
And if I have to reveal shit, I don't want to do that.
We just talked about this. Or the story I've been telling myself, which is no one will love me if I tell these things, might be incorrect because you're doing it and people love you. And so it's very threatening to the core story they've been telling.
Power of example within massive discomfort. I love the idea of anybody. Here, I'll say this, like even with acting, you're like, hey, you got a scene coming up where you have to cry. So I think about my dead grandmother. I think about my this, maybe that. Never made me cry. So what do they call it? Like crisis mode puts me in a different place. Mm-hmm. Now, if I think of a mother lifting a car off her kid.
Yes.
Like even when I say it, forget it.
Same.
That's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. If I think of people who go beyond this design of themselves that they feel that they have to adhere to, and the betterment of humanity.
Yeah.
I lose
powerful.
it.
Me too. So the tragedy that makes most people cry to me feels very expected. Yeah. Of course that person died. And of course this happened. Life sucks and it's going to get worse.
That's
when people are
can't say that in front of Monica.
Genuine.
No, I get it.
When they're genuine and earnest and sincere in the face of how risky it is to be, I lose it.
Bro, I lose my shit.
When someone's sincere and earnest and they do it out loud, I'm like, thank you so much. Being fucking earnest and beautiful in this world where people are going to call you all kinds of things for being that way is,
that's it. My daughter had whatever fears. She did it last night. We went to the ice cream shop and I said, go ask for another spoon. She dropped her spoon and she was like, the whole thing of looking back, and I could see she building up the whole, oh my God, I'm going to have to go in there. What if it doesn't come out right? Then I'm going to be, and I said, don't think, just go. And she went, and then finally she went and she did it and she came back with a smile on her face, dude.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Oh my God. Okay.
Little bravery, just bravery.
Yes.
Okay. So the part of the book I don't relate to you on, and I've really been spared this, and it's the thing that really probably gave me the most compassion for your story is I never was out there in the bowels of my addiction with kids. I had my mom as my voice, right? Like I would be at the depths of some deplorable
You didn't
act.
have kids yet.
I didn't have kids. But I would think of mom.
Forget it. I'd have been a dead
God,
man,
if my mom saw me buying this crack right now and, like, oh my God, what would my mom think? I think
horrible.
I don't know what kind of, I know what shame I've carried around, but I've never been, there's so many of your stories when it is crazy and you're in your craziness and you're getting stabbed in fucking Costa Rica. Of course, you're like, I have fucking kids. I have a son I love. I have a daughter. Why aren't I with them? I can't imagine that, or I can, because, but that layer of disappointment in yourself and the shame of that, I have been spared, and I'm just so compassionate to. It must have been so fucking painful to be in those states, just thinking, why aren't I with my kids?
I was 19 years old when Debbie got pregnant, and we were living at 2020 Beechwood Villa, just the worst apartment down here on Beechwood Canyon. And then, by the way, when I got off the freeway at Vine, then we moved from 2020 Villa. Once we found out we were going to have Trevor, went to Hollywood Towers. And then we went over to Kinwood in Los Feliz. And, you know, we just didn't have any money. And that was a really shitty part of town, just like gunshots all the time and all that stuff. But I was looking at 14 years in prison, and I'd fought 6 cops and so 6 felonies, basically. Thought I was Bruce Lee, and they taught me a big, I told you that story. It's just the dumbest story, literally most embarrassing story ever, but great. And then, you know, so again, you're in the habit, you get sober, and then you're like, okay, it's okay. And then you're responsible. And then you go back and go, God, this sobriety feels like a ball and chain. I want to have fun, my life. I'm 23 years old. I should be having fun. You convince yourself in all those ways. And then you go back out, and it doesn't get worse. It just gets gnarly. It was always gnarly. But I will have been a parent from 20 years old, and my youngest right now will graduate when I'm 70.
Wow.
So I will have been a parent my entire adult life. I basically, right. So I don't know life without kids.
Right.
So whether it's me going off and whatever this messy trajectory is of a human being, which we're all messy, you know what I mean? And you just have to accept these moments, not that they're okay. It's like people saying they needed to relapse in order to find out. I don't agree necessarily. I relapsed, and did I learn anything else? No, but I chose to do it, and I take full accountability for it and all that. There's stuff that I haven't written in the book that my family and I talk about everything. So it's all open and it's all out there. But, you know, there's things that I've done that really put my family in jeopardy. And I always tried to keep it separate. I tried to live this life, and then I tried to live that life.
You have that goal, but obviously the thing is more
starts to bleed over.
Than you.
And then it's more powerful. You're trying to control it, trying to this. And then when it would cross over and bleed over and things would happen, you just go, this is awful. But no matter what I did, whether it was involving addiction, because it wasn't always, there's a story in the book where I go to Portland, Oregon to be discovered.
Oh my God, this is for my own private Idaho.
My own private Idaho. And it's like, I stayed in a flop house. I mean, I stayed in a true like whorehouse. You know what I mean? There were like hookers going in and out, and I'm reading Rimbaud at the time, and I'm trying to be that guy. Let me tell Monica too.
It's a Gus Van Sant movie about male prostitutes. River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves. Beautiful movie. So he's
amazing
like,
movie.
I don't know what it's like to be a male prostitute. Maybe I should go figure it out.
I can't get an audition for this thing. Okay, I have enough money to fly to Portland, Oregon. And I'm going to fly to Portland, Oregon, and I'm going to walk around Boys Town in Portland, Oregon. And Gus Van Sant obviously hangs out in Boys Town.
He's probably scouting for the real deal.
Scouting for the movie.
This is your camping trip.
And he's going to see me, and he's going to go, holy shit.
Wait a minute.
Have you ever thought about acting?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I go, I have actually. You ever thought about acting? I'm doing a movie right now. No way. I'm totally available. And by the way, I have to provide for a wife and child right now. So anyway,
We've all done that.
I ended up, but not like this. We end up in the adult booze, and you got glory holes, and you got this. And I just went full, I went full into it, freaking out, and then also thinking, what am I doing?
You have the right ratio of delusion and reality. Totally. So it's like, you're delusional enough to go up there, but you're also there going, I'm a fucking fraud. I don't know what I'm doing. This isn't accomplishing anything. I suck. I have a kid. Why aren't I at home?
That's it. And by the way, that's not the first time I did. I did it with Oliver Stone for The Doors. And then I heard Val Kilmer got it. But I was walking around looking like Jim Morrison in Tucson, Arizona. Like I thought somehow it would get it. It's so sad. It's all so sad. that the irony is, and I think what the book suggests is you never know, man. If you keep putting yourself out there, you don't know what your life has in store. You just have to keep doing that. You keep having to lift the car off the child.
Yeah.
You have to keep being brave. You have to be willing to go through, the meat grinder and get ground and ground and ground and ground and ground, because you don't know what's going to be sculpted out of it. So the only time I get nominated so far, Gus Van Sant.
Wow.
I ended up doing W with Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
How fucking crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Do you tell Oliver, hey man, I was like wandering around acting like Jim Morrison?
Yeah, he
didn't care.
No, he doesn't care. And I loved working with him, and I love him. And I don't say that just to say it. If I didn't, I would say it. But a great working relationship. I think he was slightly afraid of me, which was probably a good thing.
Yeah, it takes a lot to scare him.
It takes a lot to scare him. And he's usually this guy that creates
Scaring
this
everyone.
chaos. Talk about creating a vortex that he controls. There was a great, can I tell you this quick story?
Yeah.
Okay. During W, there was a thing, and Richard Dreyfuss, and I don't know what Richard was going through. I don't know if he was sober or not sober. I think he was sober. But we had a 7-page scene, and we chose to eat sandwiches. We chose along the lines of doing this movie. We thought, I think he uses his hands a lot. He needs to use his hands a lot. So he's eating potato chips or eating sandwiches or always popping a candy or whatever. We had a scene between me and Dreyfuss, and it was just 7 pages of going back and forth informationally. And I'm eating a sandwich during the time. And I say my first line. I go, what do I call him? Vas, what do you like? What's today hold? And he goes, and I go, this is literally the first line.
No.
And he goes, what? I go, it's your line, man. And he goes, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
And dude, it was just that over and over. Every time we did the take, he would stare at me. And then Oliver comes in, he goes, what's the problem? I go, I don't fucking know. I don't know what's happening. I do not know what's happening. I studied my ass off for the scene. I don't know what's happening. And the driver was still sitting there, and he goes, what? And I go, what do you mean, what, dude? I don't understand what.
You're
we
in a
have
scene
a
in the
dialogue.
movie.
It's not a monologue. There's a dialogue. I'll hold this shit up so you can read it. Like that. He was like, why would you do that? I go, so you can speak. And I didn't know. I thought it was like one of those, Alan Font things where I was like, I'm definitely being punked.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know if he was trying to get control over me.
I don't know.
Did he not know his lines?
And you never know with actors, because that goes on all the time.
Did you get
no.
Did you figure
and
out?
then finally, I got mad. And then Oliver was like, no, I can't have you getting mad. I can't have you getting emotional. You can't get emotional. Go over there. And then they're yelling at each other. I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
I did not. I still, to this day, I don't know what's happening. It's either Dreyfuss is a genius or something was going on.
Sure.
I don't know.
Again, back to my favorite part is always when you're telling on yourself. And I would think this is a story that could happen to me any given day.
Okay.
And it would be a fucking bummer, and it would happen. Your sheep story.
I knew it.
You did?
I knew it.
It's such a beautiful story. I read it out loud to my girls last night, and my wife was listening, and she said, wow, I can't believe what a great writer he is. I totally want to read that book.
Wow.
It's such a great story.
Super cool.
And I would love for you to read it. And if you don't want to read it, I'll read it.
Oh, man.
I want people to hear this story because I think it would make them want to read this book.
It's a good cover, too.
Yeah, the cover was Joey Feldman, who's a buddy of mine, sober buddy of mine. Okay, dang. All right.
This is great because you didn't know you were going to have to do this.
No, let's see. Yeah, and by the way, I never wrote down the story. And I did take my younger kids to this very place where this happened.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we revisited at the Kerrang. Let's see if I can pronounce this stuff right. Ready?
No, yeah. When I was reading out loud, I was like, well, I'm just going to flub this. They won't know.
I'll probably flub this too. 1999, 2000. My girlfriend was getting minor surgery. I had my 11-year-old and my 7-year-old with me. We were visiting her in England. She kept pushing that we should travel, so we eventually came up with Scotland. I've always had a thing for Ireland, but Scotland never really came up before then. The Isle of Skye is a paradise. I would learn later that most of our ancestry comes from the highlands of the Isle of Skye, Clan Ross and Clan Reed. Maybe that would explain the feeling we had when we were there. The kids and I had a banter. Where are we going to sleep tonight? I'd yell, to which they'd reply in equal decibels, we don't care. We didn't care. We were carefree and happy. We were Clan Brolin. We were a unit. One day, about 5 days into a very nomadic vacation, we came across the Kerrang, a landslip on the northernmost part of Trotternish, Isle of Skye, Scotland. There was no car park at that time, but for a little soggy dirt lot along the edge of the road, everything was new to us there. Everything was a discovery. Clan Brolin just rolling along with whatever came along. A trail was barely visible in the distance, and from it overlooked a stunning portrait of the valley below. We decided to trek and make use of our whimsy. No water bottle, no idea how long it was. We took off, Eden, my 7-year-old, holding my hand, and Trevor bringing up the rear. The walk was precarious at times. Right from the trail's edge, shot down hundreds of feet, it seemed in moments. I questioned myself and my abilities as a parent. What am I doing up here? Why do I do this with little kids? What about a typical playground? Why don't you do what is already set up for children? The trail would even out with the pitch of landscape, and we'd be back freely being our lively selves. Sheep are in high population in Scotland. They are everywhere, and here was no exception. Blue dots on white riddled parts of the mountainside, red dots on others. I surmised the colors sprayed onto their thick wool represented ownership, farmer blue and farmer red. Fine, I like sheep. So do my kids. We've had sheep. They are funny, cartoon funny. Bah! I suddenly ran toward a flock of them, my arms flailing. I thought it'd make my kids chuckle, watching them run down a hill, then up another. The sheep were scared, but no harm, no foul. My children laughed more at me than at them. Our papa's crazy, and I loved living up to the legend I imagined myself to be in their minds. We love crazy papa. As I stopped running and waving my hands and just started to turn around toward my kids, I heard a snap. I didn't know what it was. Then as I refocused on the herd beyond, now running up a hillside, there was one whose legs were dragging behind it, the front paws desperately scooting the body forward in fits and starts. Poppy, what happened to that one? I jogged down to where the flock had been, and the lamb was still there, struggling frenetically. The closer I got, the more it tried to scamper away, but it couldn't. Something wasn't working in its body. I hoped it was in shock because of the sudden change in pitch. I hoped that maybe the sheep's body had temporarily spasmed and frozen. I put one hand on the back of its neck to try to calm it, and the other I slowly pulled down the length of its spine. Vertebra, 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 vertebra. The sheep let out a yell. It was a screech of pain. We were 2 miles away from the car. That part of its back had collapsed. It moved. Something is broken. I've been raised with wild animals my whole life. Bobcats bit my cheek until it bled, and I've cleaned the cages of wolves, mountain lions, and bobcats since I can remember. I know how to deal with crisis. I would have been a good soldier. I'm calm under copious amounts of stress. I looked over my shoulder to my kids. They were staring at me, waiting for a sign of how to react. Stay there, I told them. Please stay there. I don't know what to do. I was kidding. I was making a joke. This goddamn sheep's back broke. How the fuck did that happen? It was only meant as a joke. What do I do? But I kept a face on. I looked around for anyone else on the trail. Nobody. I looked up to the peaks of the Kerrang, how the fog was just caressing the tips of them, and I suddenly felt the cold front of death enter my body. The sheep scooted slightly farther forward and bleated. I grabbed its body and attempted to swing it onto my shoulders. I couldn't. It was too heavy. I wanted to be that parent who could lift cars to save their child, but no matter how hard I tried to hoist it, it failed. I looked back to my kids who looked sad and anxious, but stoic. They had in them that ranch kid grit that didn't allow for an instant reaction. They knew it was going to get worse, and to react now would be premature. Turn your heads. They did. I could break its neck, I thought to myself. One startling snap, and it would be out of its misery and pain. What if I waited? Would it be better? Where is everyone? I avoided it as long as I could. The sun was getting lower in the sky, and all I knew was that I was going to have to kill this innocent animal. I grabbed its muzzle with my left hand, and then brought my right hand over the left side of its head, leveraging my left. I'm going to pull as hard and as fast as I can, and it'll go out like a light. 1, 2, turn your heads, cover your ears. They did. 1, 2, 3. I pulled as every organ in my body fell into this hell of my own making. Bah! The screaming. The sheep kept screaming. Its back legs were splayed out, and it just screamed and screamed as it kept reaching forward away from me. It knew I was here to murder it. There was no sign of physical trauma. None. Can we look? My son yelled over his shoulder. Not yet. I didn't know what to do. My kids were watching me. This was a seminal moment. There was no pride in trying to kill the sheep. There was nothing but shame and inadequacy. I didn't know what I was doing. I should know. I was 31 years old. I grew up on a ranch. I grew up around wild animals. I had to assist in the deaths of animals all the time in our house. Cancer, age, trauma. I wrapped my hand around the nape of its neck. I told it I was sorry. I was sorry. I didn't know what to do. I had killed wounded animals before, a stork on a beach with a broken neck, birds flying into windows who could never fly away again. I put my dog down when he was riddled with cancer. I should know how to do this. We were 50 feet from the edge of the cliff. I could throw it off, but what if it survived? I don't know what's down there. What if there's hay or a soft bog? I looked up and the other sheep were watching me from afar. My daughter was crying by now. It was a soft cry. A silent cry, just tears. My son put his arm around her, ranch kids consoling each other through each of nature's traumas. But this was because of me. Do they think if I kill this sheep that I would kill them? Not now, but at any point in their lives? If I do this, will it always be living somewhere under their skin, itching at them? I dragged the sheep up the hill while it continued to bleat and try and hold its ground with its front hooves. There was a loose rock. It was an old rock with a layer of mica and a slight fur of moss covering it. I picked it up, and there were two sharp edges visible. I ran my hand over them. They were as sharp as they looked. I imagined the sheep telling me to put it out of its misery, but I knew that wasn't the case. It had no say in the matter. It was all in my head. The truth is, we were all dying on that landslip, but soon one of us would be dead. My aim had to be right on. Turn your heads, cover your ears. My daughter wiped away the tears on her face with the backside of her hand, then put the palms of her hands over her ears. My son followed suit. I lifted the rock above my head. One eye stared up at me from near my feet. The grass along the trail was a deep green. I imagined blood on it. I tried to prepare myself. I am a killer. I kill innocent beings. I'm not funny. There is nothing funny about me. Don't think. Aim. Save this animal from the pain I caused it. Aim. Please, God. Please let me get it right. I stand tall, the rock suspended above me. Thunk. A dull sound. It's moving. Please, God. Keep your heads turned. Small bursts of wind came. Lift. Thunk. Lift. Thunk. Lift. Crack. Silence. The wind is picking up. My children are cold. I am cold. The world is cold. I feel my children inside me. I see their pain through me. I feel for the pulse of the animal. Silence, except for the winds. None of us move. I am looking down. My children are looking away. The sheep is dead. We stand for a long, long time. We stand there to this day.
Oh my. That's beautiful. I mean, it's tragic, but it's beautiful.
Oh man, that's like fucking Carver-esque, my friend. What a story. For me, of course, I'm always walking this tightrope of trying to give everyone the most spectacular experience.
That's exactly right.
And I'm irresponsible.
Yeah.
And it goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's so selfish of me that I do things and it goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm reading that. Chris and I were in Africa. I see this huge herd of giraffe. I'll have it on video. It's part of our video. It worked out.
Right.
I ran at the giraffes and they all started running and it was great.
Yeah.
One could have tripped. If I'd have killed a fucking giraffe trying to entertain this gal.
And that's with them for the rest of their life.
And that's the kind of things I play with. And it's irresponsible and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. I got to live with the fact that it doesn't.
Yeah.
That one fucking hit me.
Yeah.
Because that's really a metaphor for how I've been living my whole life.
That's it. Is
Watch me jump off this thing. Watch
we
me do
talked
this.
it in the beginning. It's like when you said when one parent leaves and then you're sitting there and you're having to perform, which was what we said. You're having to perform, and then there's always this performative sense of self. Like you're the funny guy, you're the crazy guy, and that's especially while drinking. It was like I went out with a guy once who he was from Canada, but we were in LA, and we had a certain relationship where I was in my really crazy phase, and he brought somebody from Canada and flew her down and said, "Hey, I'm going to take you out with Josh, and you'll buckle up."
Yeah.
And for some reason, I wasn't drinking at that moment. I was like, had a day, maybe 3 days before, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to stay off the sauce for a while. And we went to, which one of the few times I've been there, to the Viper Room. And he said, "What do you have to drink?" And I go, "I'm just going to have water." And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I go, I'm not going to drink tonight. And he said, "Dude, I brought my friend down from Canada.
It's time for the Josh show."
And I was like, holy shit, I'm your clown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the jester.
I'm the jester.
Yeah.
I'm the jester.
Yeah.
And I think that's another, thing about the book is that that's what my mom was. And it was only toward the end of her life that she started to come to terms. She had thought of a really great story for a series, and she wasn't involved in Hollywood at all, but it had to do with chimps and people. And ironically, this series is out now
I
called
called
Chimps.
you the
It was
first call.
Literally.
Yeah.
And it was like, and she had thought of that story, and somebody said, "I love that idea. Let's develop it." And I remember my mom in the kitchen crying, like really profusely crying, which she didn't. She never did. And I said, "What's up?" And she said, "I've never been taken seriously in my life." So you have the bleed over of that, which is me, some masculine form of that, who's doing that same song and dance, who realizes on his own terms, luckily younger, and says, "You know what? I don't want to be this jester all the time. I don't want to be the one that people are happy to escape, but they're happy that exists because they're living life, some version of chaos through me."
You're living out their fears weirdly.
Whatever.
Yeah, you're the horror movie they go to
I'm
see.
the horror movie that they go, that's it.
Yes.
That's it. I'm the horror movie.
And then under all that is, could we love you just because you exist?
That's it, which you can't.
And you don't think so.
No,
and I don't think so.
I've gotten the same thing from, I understood people who are obese, and you go, "Hey, we can do this, or we can do gastrosurgery, we can do this, we do that." And they go, "No." And there's this, reticence to work out and all this. And then I got it because I paralleled it with the drinking. Oh, without your extra weight, you don't exist. It's the thing that people are always talking about. At least it's something.
Without it, you disappear maybe. Yeah.
You're invisible.
Yeah.
And I always felt that about drinking. Whereas I'd go out and it was like, "Did you know what you did last night?" I go, "No, tell me."
Mm-hmm.
And they go, "You were nuts. It was so much fun. But then you did this thing and we climbed this
for a while,
building and then you
got-
jumped and you thought you had a parachute on, but you didn't."
Yeah.
And then you go, "That's all great." And I lived off that for years.
Yeah.
Years anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it's the power of identity that we put on ourselves. Like the whole story where you like being the crazy dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1 second, you're not the crazy dad. You're a person.
That's exactly
And
right.
that's all we really are.
You're just another person.
That's it.
And can
Which is
you
terrifying.
find something? It's just terrifying.
Yeah.
It is. And do you get to that place eventually
Yeah.
where you can say, "I'm okay just with what I have around me, my family, the few friends and all that. I don't have to charm everybody.
Mhm.
Not everybody has to like me. It's
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to go write a fucking book."
This has been incredible. I guess the only
Thank you.
thing I wanted from the book, and maybe it'll come in another book, is your mom deserves an explanation. Why is she that
I
way?
was wondering that too.
Yeah.
Something happened to her.
Well, I used to talk, and I won't go off on a whole tangent, but I used to talk to her about it, because my mom was in Camarillo State Hospital. She wasn't there for very long, but her sister was in and out of Bellevue for 30 years. I mean, really severely alcoholic, really crazy. And I got to know her sister later. But I would ask her, and she said, "My parents were amazing. My parents were amazing.
She was down in Texas, Corpus Christi,
Texas. And she'd say, I'd sneak out my window and my parents would come back. They'd be so worried about me. I would yell at them for waiting up for me. She said, I was the chaos. And she very readily admitted that.
But
do
really
I
quick,
believe
Josh,
it? 1,000%?
Right.
Maybe
because
not.
again, her whole thing was she couldn't be vulnerable. So she had power over that story if it was just her. But I don't know.
No.
Maybe. Not. I don't know.
Maybe.
We may never know. Well, I fucking adore you.
I adore you, man.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad. I
Thank
don't
you
care
for
if this
taking
is your
this.
1 millionth interview. I got everything I wanted out
I'm
of
telling you, it's not like the others.
it. All right, I love you.
I love
we'll
you.
do this again.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming.
Thank you.
So lovely.
All right.
He is an armchair expert, but he makes mistakes all the time. Thank God Monica's here. She's gonna let him have the facts.
We are coming to you live from an apocalypse.
Not live, 5 days late. But 5 days ago,
Yes.
we were in the midst of an apocalypse.
Wild sky this morning.
Yeah.
I got up really, really early. You know, part of this resolutions biz is I gotta wake up so early to get the things done.
Oh,
Now that I'm back to writing again in the memoir after the journal.
got it.
So I woke up super early. I checked my emails to see if Delta's school was closed. There was no emails. She was also incredibly excited to go to school. She was out sick the day before, but she could not get there fast enough today because she bought Freddie in Mexico City a fidget spinner with grenades on it.
That's thoughtful.
And the cutest thing was when we were walking down the street with all these little tiny market stands with selling different stuff. Of course, I'm checked out, right? I can't stand shopping. So I'm just kind of like standing. And then she ran over to me and she's like, Dad, I need your help. What would a boy like?
Oh.
So I went over, we looked at this thing, and her conclusion after playing with it the whole trip was it's the best fidget spinner she had ever, performance-wise. She spun it. Watch how long this thing spins. Anyways, we drive to school right away, even when the sun came out, because I watched the sun come up and I was like, that is the eeriest sky I've ever seen in LA. It's like dark as hell. We get to school. We were early. We were out of the house on time. And I was like, oh, I love getting here early. Parking's a breeze. Wow, parking's really easy.
Yeah.
Walk up to the school. It's closed.
I would have been surprised if it was open.
Open my phone, 7:20 a.m. That cancellation came in, so I was 20 minutes early. So then we drove up to Freddie's at 8 in the morning
Oh,
and gave him that present, which was really, really fun.
cute.
Yeah. And then got home and we have a couple different groups staying at the house who have been evacuated.
Yeah, people. Yeah, so yesterday at like, I guess 2, or 1 early, a fire started in the Palisades, which is on the west side, so far from us. Normally, these fires happen in Malibu.
Yeah. Palisades, that's the first for me. Seeing
Yeah, Palisades was new and closer, more inland. And it just kept going and going and going. And everyone there had to evacuate and it's gone. The Palisades is gone. The Palisades village is completely gone.
All the stores?
Yes.
Wow. I was watching late last night and the high school was on fire. I was like, whoa. But the winds were...
They were insane.
They were insane.
Yeah. And that's why the fires got really out of control. And apparently that Palisades fire was moving at 5 football fields a minute.
Wow. Okay, so 5 football fields, 500 yards. That's a quarter mile a minute.
Crazy.
Yeah, the winds were blowing 60 miles an hour. The embers were like I don't know if you saw like the female newscaster was given a thing and she just gets engulfed in embers and she's
Oh my
like,
God.
appropriately so panicking.
Yeah.
I was having a moment watching that. This woman is in the pit of hell. She is standing across the street from the high school that's on fire. And then the other side of the street is on fire. And there's embers whipping around everywhere. And she's breathing in a tremendous amount of smoke. And of course, everyone else is scurrying to get out of there.
Right.
And she is there.
I know.
And I was like, this is the greatest example of like when you have a goal and you want to do something, like she wants to be a reporter on the fucking ground when the shit's hitting the fan.
Yeah.
So for her, it's one experience. And it illuminated or illustrated perfectly what your mindset does to your experience in a situation.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of journalists have they chase that. Like that's a part of their personality. I feel like when we had Anderson Cooper on, we talked a little bit about that it's in some ways it's like an addict's brain. Like there's some element of chasing a chaos.
I guess my conclusion was, you think a situation is objectively a thing, but really, if you want to be there, it's one experience. And if you don't want to be there, it's a completely different experience. The context is identical. Mm-hmm. It's like I said, if you're on a football team and you want to tackle the person, you're completely oblivious to the amount of pain you incur because you've chosen to run as fast as you can and tackle the person. If you're sitting on the sidewalk and you're having an ice cream and that's not what you want, you don't expect it, and you get hit with the same velocity, it hurts.
Right.
It doesn't hurt when you want it, and it hurts when you don't want it. And it's just so interesting, the power of our brain. So if you want to be in that situation, you're where you want to be, and it's all tolerable. Mm-hmm. And if it's just came up on you out of nowhere, it is a nightmare.
Lights on fire.
She said something like, okay. Like it was this self-talk of like, okay, we're in the shit now. It was the attitude of someone that wanted to be there.
Yeah, I think if you get out, you can then reflect back and have that opinion. But if you're in the hospital.
But even experientially in the inferno.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to me.
So that happened. And then there was a lot of warnings that likely more fires would start popping up in the night because it was supposed to get much worse. The winds were supposed to increase between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. and hit like 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
You know, everyone started like getting these warnings and stuff. I had this app, and yeah, I'm just like staring at the map of LA and just like watching them just pop up all over the place.
Well, then it became a two-front war because on the west side of us, it was that, and then Altadena.
Exactly.
And Bree lives in Altadena.
Yeah, did she have to evacuate?
So I was like,
I assume?
Come over if you need to. She's like, oh, we got a hotel, shockingly.
Okay, good.
And I'm like, I'm watching that thing. I'm like, where are all these people going?
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
We are supported by Allstate. Allstate partnered with Armchair Expert to be the presenting sponsor of this episode, so thank you, Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first.
Like, you know, to check if you have a full tank of gas before you go out on a road trip. You just know that.
Yes, or you know, to check yourself in the mirror to make sure there's nothing in your teeth first before you start recording a video ad.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Do I have anything in my teeth?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Like, you know, you have to check your breath before you have a first kiss.
Sure, cup and blow and sniff.
Also, you have to check to make sure your clothes aren't on inside out before you put them on. Oh. I do.
Or upside down. Check to see if there's some paste on your brush before you start brushing your teeth. Just simple things. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. This content is intended for audiences in the U.S. only. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Looking at all of this, I was so confused. I was just like, I don't know fires. Like, I don't understand them. I don't know where you're supposed to go. If there's a fire on all sides, how do you get anywhere?
Yeah.
How early are you supposed to leave? Should I be going somewhere now just in case? Because yes, this Altadena one is on one side of us, and at this point is moving into Glendale, which is very close to us. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I just felt like I have no idea what to do. And
you were scared.
Very.
You were very scared.
Yeah. I was up till 3 staring at this thing.
Worrying.
And then I lost power, and then I lost cell and internet, and I couldn't communicate with anyone, and it was scary. Yeah.
Sorry you were scared.
That's okay. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to be by yourself. But it was fine. Obviously, we're fine here. Thank God. We're so lucky to be in a place that we did not have to evacuate. We know people.
Well, one of our friends in the Palisades house burnt to the ground.
Yep. We know people whose houses have burned down. Many people who've had to leave. I
found myself on hour 2 of watching the coverage myself getting annoyed with human nature. Mm-hmm. People must be thinking this all over the country, which is like, how many times do we spend hundreds of billions of dollars in the wake of it and continue to put almost nothing into prevention.
I know.
I don't understand. Like, is at some point the governor going to go like, we got to cut the shit and get fucking serious about preventing this stuff? Because, I mean, and it'll be expensive, but these start because the winds blow the power lines down, they start a fire.
Exactly.
We got to get the power lines underground. I don't know. That's step one. Power lines shouldn't, that's going to cost a fortune, but there's no way it's going to cost as much as
all of this.
those houses that were burning in the Palisades. Those are like $40 million houses.
Yeah.
The bill on that Palisades thing is going to, it's just going to be gargantuan.
Across the board, it's like when we think about where talent and energy is being spent, when the city is on fire, you really start evaluating like, what is the point of all this other extra accoutrement when we can't even get a fire under? It's still like, I think the Altadena fire is still at 0% containment.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's wild. Even military. I'm like, why?
Well, then no one could fly in it last night. The winds were way too bad to fly. Like, I think they're doing a great job. In fact, I was watching it and I was seeing that like already Arizona had deployed a bunch of firefighters. Towns north of us had deployed. They had, they're coordinating all this stuff. And I was like, when you're at a bar saying you hate the fucking government, that's the government. Somebody comes to help.
Exactly.
Thank fucking God.
I agree.
There's this huge system in place. They don't have their hands on it now. They're gonna. Without them, the entire city would burn to the ground. You'd have no city, and you'd go, "Yeah, good, no government." What the?
And then
fuck
no
are
one
you?
repairing it either. Like, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
like
wild.
you hate the government. That's who's come to rescue.
Firefighters, and then also even today, just all the landscape workers. Like, there's so many people out there like trying to clear out. There's a huge tree that fell on Los Feliz and Commonwealth, so that whole intersection is completely blocked by a tree, and like you see these guys out there like trying to get it out. Yeah, it's wild. It is wild. It felt very end of days.
It's funny because we had done an episode of Armchair Anonymous yesterday. And we interviewed a nurse who was telling us there was a bomb threat.
Yes, I thought about this.
And so there was a nursing home that they had to evacuate in Glendale. And there's footage of it. And there's just all these old people in wheelchairs and on beds. And I'm like, again, thank God there's nurses.
Oh my
God,
I know.
Rescue
Infrastructure.
People. Yes.
Yes, I know.
Oh.
I know. I agree. I fully agree.
That must be part of the reason they build prisons out in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Maybe.
Because what would you do if you had to release all the prisoners?
So scary. That's probably also maybe if they escape, then it's more time to find them before they like hit a community. Maybe it's part of also why they're remote.
Sure. Well, and they're looking for cheap land and no one gives a shit. They don't. Yeah. I mean, there's numerous reasons, but I was thinking like, yeah, what happens if when there's a bomb threat at the prison? Do they just go like, oh, tough shit, we're going to ride this out. The guards are going to leave. Like what happens at prison? You can't just let inmates out.
I know.
Yeah. I wonder if that's ever happened. We
that
can't
sounds
search.
Like
we have
a
no
movie.
internet.
Yeah, we don't have internet here, so we can't do any searches.
This is like doing the podcast in 1994.
Regular radio.
Yeah.
On 4K cameras.
Yeah. Ignore that part.
But yeah, anyway, it's been a wild 24 hours.
Very eventful.
Very eventful 24 hours in Los Angeles. Oh, and for people who will probably ask, because in today's episode, we reference that we did a commercial and that it's out, but it's not out yet. We did postpone putting it, or the company decided to probably rightfully postpone. So just as nothing else. I mean, what else has happened since?
Nothing really compares.
Nothing beats that, really.
Yeah.
Josh Brolin, I think, lived in Malibu. So that's a ding, ding, ding.
He did live in Malibu, but I think he relocated.
Okay.
Yeah. Still journaling?
Yep. Still journaling.
So what are we at? 8 for 8?
Yeah. Today's the 8th, right?
Is it 7th, 8th?
Today's the 8th. So 8 days.
8 to 8.
8 days of journaling. And I'm also.
The 8th day of journaling, I wrote down a secret.
Yeah.
Now
lots
I
of
have to
secrets.
burn, but I can't because of fire.
Oh, shit.
It would be insensitive
It would be.
to burn my journal.
And it was interesting because, you know, people were like, make sure you have your stuff ready in case you got to go fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just sort of like looking around my apartment and I was like, what am I going to bring? What should I take? Like, what is important to me?
Yeah.
And all I took was my passport and my medication.
Yeah.
I didn't put anything in there.
Yeah. I remember I was shooting Baby Mama in 2005 or 6, and Griffith Park was on fire, and they evacuated all the houses on Los Feliz Boulevard, one of them being mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so Carly called me and said, hey, they're evacuating your thing. Do you want me to go? What do you want me to grab from the house?
Oh.
And I was like, everything I've written's on the computer. Grab that. I don't want to lose everything I've written.
Yeah.
He said, what about that? And I'm like, no, just grab that and get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
Did your power go out?
It's out currently.
It's out currently.
Mm-hmm. Rob's went out.
Yeah, we've been out since
much
like
earlier last night.
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Yep.
What did you like candles and stuff?
We did, and then our neighbor's window flew out of the frame and shattered in the side of our house.
Wow.
The winds were so
they're crazy.
nuts.
Yeah.
And you could hear it like so loudly as if it was like a thunderstorm.
Yeah. Fires are observable and they're predictable. You know where they're at. You know which way the wind's blowing. There's some prediction that can be made. The wind's like, where did that come from? Why now? When's the next one? You don't know.
Yeah.
And they're like 60, 70 mile an hour gusts.
But so this is for Josh Brolin, our friend.
I love him.
That was lovely.
I just love him.
I'm so happy he read his book for us. That was so kind.
Yeah.
of him to do.
Someone had heard it on the early release and they said that they cried during that. I thought that was nice.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very touching and
Yeah.
moving. Okay, so the Fred Durst, Corey Feldman tour
Mm-hmm.
is called Loserville, which we don't like.
Yeah, we don't love the name of that.
I mean, I'm not blaming them for calling it a bad name, but it makes me feel sad that they called it that.
Yeah. Well, what I think is happening is Fred Durst, who I don't know personally, I've never met him. I follow him on Instagram because he loves station wagons. That's my full extent.
Mm-hmm.
But he seems to be a pretty self-aware person. And I think he's very aware of that Doc, Woodstock, and the fact that they were, at least in that documentary, kind of credited with this terrible toxic masculinity,
Right.
all the gnarly stuff that happened at that festival. I think he's aware that people are associating him with all that.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably not that as a whatever age guy he is. And
Yeah.
I think he's trying to figure out how to own it and continue on being a musician. I don't know. I think he's in an interesting situation.
Yeah.
I think this was probably the best attempt at that.
Well, this says the wild, mostly sold out summer tour that brought together two pop culture icons who know exactly what you think of them.
In the description.
Yeah. And then he talks about Skylight Books, which is down the street from us.
You love Skylight Books.
I love Skylight Books. It's a great bookstore.
How often do you find yourself in there?
Sometimes I like to just go on walks, and that's a nice destination for the walk because it's a good amount of distance.
Steps. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then it has a nice little ending. It's cute. It's really cute to walk around there.
I did my sprints yesterday.
How'd they go?
You know, as part of my res.
Uh-huh.
Do sprints once or twice a week. I think they're the worst workout you can do.
They're hard, yeah.
I think they might be the very. there's probably something worse that I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Because biking up the mountain is really terrible, but the sprints are worse. But I did them, and then today I'm a little taut.
What does a sprint workout look like?
I did 1/2 pace. Well, I start at the gate and I run to the far end of the property. I think that's probably about 75 yards. And I do a 1/2 pace one first, then a 3/4 pace one second to loosen and warm my tendons and muscles up. And then it's as fast as I can humanly come out of my blocks and run to the end. And then I'm allowed to walk back to regain my breath, which I barely do. And the second I'm back there, I have to turn and I'm using your clicker finally.
Oh, Nice.
Yes, you got me very early on for my birthday an Usher's clicker
Yeah.
because I always wanted to operate one.
Yeah.
And I have had it and really not had any great use for it. I don't tear tickets often in life. But in the past, when I did sprints, I'd have like a pile of rocks I moved every time.
Oh, geez.
Because you kind of lose track.
Yeah.
So this time was like walk back. The second I'm at the gate, I have to turn, drop, click, sprint.
Nice.
And so I did 11 sprints.
Nice.
Yeah, at full pace.
Well, the wind probably didn't help.
Yeah, I wasn't noticing it too much at that time. Yeah, but it could have been rough.
Could have been a factor.
Yeah. The good thing about sprints is they're over quickly. Like you can't do sprints for an hour.
No, God,
at least
no.
the way I'm doing it, where it's just they're back to back to back.
Now, we've talked about this many times, but I always feel like it's not correct, so I always check it about Matt Damon and 10% of Avatar. It's correct.
It's still correct.
Yep, it's still correct. It'll always be correct.
It's still correct.
10%
of Avatar. What are we at? There's 3 of them? There's 2 of them.
Now, that's the part I haven't reconfirmed.
Let me see what the grand
2 are out.
Of those movies. Worldwide Avatar #1 in 2009 is $2.923 billion. We can call that $3 billion. So that's 300 million. And let's see, Avatar 2. Oh, we're at 300 million. Let's see. The Way of the Water. We got a grand total on that bad boy of 2.3 billion, so another 230. So we're looking at 530 million. $500 million.
Wow.
Oh, thank God he's doing it for the right reason.
He is. He
like,
sure
that doesn't
is.
seem to hurt him at all. That would.
He just laughs.
That would be, yeah. Yeah, almost made a half.
I guess that's what you have to do. Also,
and he's made plenty.
He's
of
done
money.
great.
Yeah.
He's done great.
It's a lot of row.
It is.
You can buy the company.
No, they would never sell it.
Mm-mm.
Never. Too much integrity.
But what were they just valued at? 600 million?
No, $1 billion.
Oh, at $1 billion.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can buy half of it. Controlling interest. Oh. And part of your stipulations were that the girls had to go out for wine with you a lot to pitch you the new product lines.
Oh, that sounds great.
Can you imagine sitting with wine and they were showing you sketches and
I wonder if
fabrics?
they're wine girls. I don't think so.
Okay.
There might be more martini girls. I would put them more in the martini category. Sophisticated.
They're too cool.
They're cool.
Wine's too pedestrian.
A little. Yeah. I love it.
Hey.
I love it.
Hey.
But I'm pedestrian. What can you do? All right. That's it for Josh.
Those were all the facts. Love you.
Love you.